Hi, everybody. So today I've got a couple of questions that I brought to this broadcast to answer that I think are pretty common. It's so great to see you guys. Thank you so much for joining. And I'm also going to stay on for a Q&A, an open fertility Q&A. So whatever questions you might have about natural fertility, I'm here. Hello, South Africa. So nice to see you. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in. So great to see you guys. And when you feel free to ask questions. And when you ask your question, you're going to type it in, but also copy it so that you can paste it again in case I can't get to your question right away. So one of the questions I've gotten recently that I think is such a great topic that I haven't covered yet is dairy good for fertility? So I talk about diet a lot for fertility because it's so important. What you're eating can impact the health of your eggs, the health of sperm, your hormonal balance, everything, the lining of your uterus, all these different aspects that are really important for healthy fertility. So one of the foods I actually haven't talked about is dairy, and is it a fertility superfood? Is it good for fertility, or is it bad for fertility? And so I'd have to say dairy is actually not a food that is required to be eaten while you're trying to support your fertility, and it can actually be a negative food. There's a couple of reasons for that. So if you're someone who might be experiencing endometriosis, PCOS, fibroids, any type of situation where there's inflammation or there's excess tissue or growth, dairy would actually be a food you should not consume. There's a couple of reasons for it. Dairy is known to be increase inflammation within the body. It can also increase mucus, and one of the main things is it's possibly going to increase additional hormones. The cows that are making milk are fed and given a lot of hormones to stay in production year round. A cow lactating as often as our commercial cows do is not natural, so they give them drugs to be able to do that. Estrogen is one of those drugs. So that is something that we work so hard to avoid in a natural fertility lifestyle, but then it's here in abundant amounts in our food. The other reason that it can be a negative food for fertility is because a lot of these excess hormones are actually stored in fat, and milk is very high in fat. Even if you're looking at 2% milk or skim milk, that is not actually accurate. So when you see milk that says 2%, it's not that the milk is it's low fat. 2% seems like a small number, but when you look at the actual amount of fat in it, it is actually a very high number. So I actually would not suggest dairy for a healthy fertility diet. There's no need for it. You can get calcium from so many other places, especially if you're following a whole foods diet. And raw milk, is... If you're going to drink milk, raw milk would be the way to go, but I actually don't think it's something that's necessary. And if you are trying to overcome something where there are additional areas of inflammation in your body and you're trying to reduce growth of endometriosis, fibroids, cysts on the ovaries, things like that, I would actually discontinue eating dairy. That would be one of the things. Exactly. Cholesterol content can be scary for certain family histories. So the good news, here's some alternatives. I don't leave you guys hanging ever with doom news. There's so many great alternatives. There's almond milk, cashew milk, rice milk, hazelnut milk. Currently, I'm obsessed with cashew milk. It is so delicious. It's just something I don't use it to necessarily get my protein or get my calcium or anything like that. I just use it as a milk, for what it is, as a liquid to put in my smoothies or whatnot. But I have recipes on the website for how to make your own almond milk if you want to do that. But there's so many companies that are making these alternative milks, and you're finding them in normal everyday grocery store. Here we have City Market, and they've got a whole row of like 20 different types of alternative milks. So not something to be concerned about. If you're going to be able to get your calcium, your protein, you can totally get it from all these other foods. So my opinion is dairy's not necessarily on a fertility diet and actually should be avoided if you're going through some serious fertility issues where there's inflammation or extra growth. And cheese as well, of course, Jesse, yeah. So by dairy, I mean any cheese, milk, those types of foods. So yeah, are you guys surprised by that? Does that surprise you? What do you think about that? I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are on dairy, if that's something that's possibly that you do consume a lot of and that you're concerned about stopping. So the next question that I got was, can men use Vitex? What do you guys think? Do you think men can use Vitex? This is something that's so interesting because Vitex is such a popular herb. Oh, you didn't think about it, Jesse, until your doctor asked how much cheese you ate. Yeah. And cheese happens to be, I think, the hardest for people because it's very addicting, because it tastes so great. Okay, so can men use Vitex? Yes, some of it, yes, very surprised. Does it lower their libido? So this is a question I get a lot. Does Vitex, one, does it lower libido? And two, can men use it? So the first is, I do not believe that Vitex lowers libido. There is historical use of it being used by monks, by priests who are needing some help to lower their libido, and that's where the name chaste tree berry comes from. So it's something that has a history of it's being used for that. But what we find is actually with our clients is it increases libido. So that's, oh, exactly. Someone was saying they have rheumatoid arthritis and dairy can cause flare-ups. Yes, it's a very inflammatory type of food to eat. So definitely avoiding that. So can men use Vitex? Yes, they can. And we have not found that it decreases libido. What we've found is that it actually can help with testosterone production in men. Not in a freaky way that you see some people trying to use herbs and they're trying to bulk up and get all this testosterone. In a way that the same way it works in women to help to increase progesterone and balance out hormones in general. It's helping to support the endocrine system. So I thought this was so cool that Vitex can also be used to help support men and their endocrine system when they're experiencing low testosterone production. Another herb that we like to use for that is testosterone. So, or not testosterone, tribulus. Another herb we like to use is tribulus for that. So that's another herb we use for women to help increase ovulation. So it's interesting because these are having similar functions in the bodies of both men and women, but it's different hormones, and they're working because they're supporting a system. They're not just adding a hormone to the body. Does Vitex affect a female's testosterone? Repost that question about the castor in just 1 second. So no, it does not, because Vitex does not contain any hormones. How Vitex works is it's helping to support the endocrine system. So by supporting the endocrine system, the body, if you're female, is going to balance itself out, and you're going to increase progesterone if you're low in progesterone. In a man's body, if you're low in testosterone, the endocrine system coming into balance would mean an increase in testosterone if that's what's needed. So that's how Vitex works. So it's kind of a no-brainer to me now that, of course, it works for both men and women. I've always, all of my work and all of my studies gone into its use with women, but now there are some male herbalists who are using it to help men with testosterone production, and I just thought that was so great and so cool. Something that's very safe and very supportive to help with that, because there's a lot of other things people are trying that might be a little bit dangerous. Someone was asking, yeah, plants are so cool. They're my best friends. Someone was asking about castor oil pack during the 2-week wait. Is it dangerous? We generally don't suggest doing castor oil packs during the 2-week wait because of the heat involved, because of the heating pack. You kind of don't want to be adding extra heat, doing hot tub, things like that. If you've been doing it and you didn't know you were pregnant, you're most likely going to be perfectly fine, but we're just being very, very cautious in not wanting to add heating pack directly to the abdomen during the 2-week wait. I wouldn't call it dangerous. It's just kind of a precaution that we have during that 2-week wait. If you guys have any questions, I know there's a lot of new people who just jumped on. You can go ahead and put them in the comments below. I'm doing a live Q&A right now. You just started and you're actively trying but not preventing, should you continue using it? If you think that there's a chance that you could be pregnant, then during the 2-week wait, you might want to be a little bit more cautious. It's not necessarily something that you need to be obsessed about. No, I don't think it's something that's hugely dangerous or anything like that. So I'm getting a lot of menopausal questions, and it's really not my specialty. So DIM during menopause, DIM is specifically for helping with high estrogen levels. If you're in menopause, do you know what hormones of yours are out of balance? You might want to get some testing done to find out. A lot of times, women in menopause are actually low on a lot of hormones. So DIM would not be something I would suggest from my limited knowledge of menopause, because generally there probably is not an excess estrogen situation going on. But it's always good to just find out where you're at and get some blood testing done. It's so good to know where you're at, and then you can go natural and find out what you can do with that. Maca with estrogen and progesterone cream. Maca can be used with those two things, yes, and Maca and Vitex can be used at the same time. So Maca, again, is going to be like Vitex. Vitex is an adaptogenic herb, but Maca is an adaptogenic herb, so it's helping to support a system. So that is a very nutritive type of herb. It's a very gentle type of herb, so it can be used with many things. There's other herbs that are a lot stronger that you may not want to use, with something such as progesterone cream, but when it comes to Maca, it's very nutritive. So yes, that is something that can easily be combined with Vitex, and it can easily be combined with progesterone cream. So how do you keep your eggs healthy and young? That's a great question. So when it comes down to the basics of egg health, you have to remember that our ovum, the egg, is the largest cell of the body. It's just another cell in our body. We have so many different cells. They're turning over constantly. So when we look at that, we think of how can we protect cell health? Antioxidants. Antioxidants are so important. So that's one of the main things that we focus on for healthy eggs is antioxidants, but not just any antioxidants. There's specific ones that you need to use that are going to help with the energy of the cells for the cell turnover to be healthy. I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible. So antioxidants are going to be key, and using a blend of them. And then the other is increasing your circulation. So we're eating a healthy diet, we're doing antioxidants, but you have sluggish circulation because you happen to be sitting in a chair just like I am right now all day long. So increasing circulation, that's exercise, running, walking, jumping on a trampoline, yoga, massage, whatever it is for you, getting that blood moving on a daily basis is going to be important to oxygenate your cells, including the biggest ones of your body, your eggs. So those are some of the things that we focus on for egg health. Diet is a major part of it as well. You walk whenever you watch Scopes. Very cool, Jesse. I would love to as well, but I think it makes everybody nauseous. Oh, there was a really good question someone just posted. Any suggestions on how to lengthen a 10-day luteal phase? Have you tried Vitex? Vitex is one of my main go-tos to lengthen a luteal phase. There's a lot of studies with it. Is there any tea you can drink to help you cleanse help your fertility? Yeah, we have the Fertility Cleanse Kit. That would definitely be something for you to check out. If you want a tea to help cleanse, you could just do liver detox with conception's tea, but I would actually suggest doing the whole Fertility Cleanse Kit. It's amazing. I have a lot of people on here who've done it. You can ask them about it, but it's definitely a great starting point. 6 weeks pregnant, just had progesterone tested yesterday. If it's low, would you recommend Vitex? No, I actually would not recommend you start Vitex while you're pregnant. Vitex is best used prior to pregnancy. Once you're pregnant, and if it is found that you have low progesterone, I would suggest you do what your practitioner feels best with, because you're going to need to be continually monitored. So you want to talk with them about your different options, whether it's going to be a cream, a suppository, an injection, whatnot. So you need to have your practitioner on board and be using what they think is going to be best, because you're going to have to get your blood levels tested frequently. So you need someone on your team that can do that. What steps do you take after the cleanse? So it depends, Rose, on what it is that you are trying to overcome, what it is that if you know what's going on with you. So have you had any testing done? Are you just preparing for pregnancy and you're perfectly fertile and you're perfectly balanced? So after that, if you have fertility issues, then you might want to look into some herbs and supplements depending on the situation. Diet is like a given if you didn't already start that. Starting to shift your diet, eating more whole plant foods. Unknown infertility, that's actually one of the topics I'm going to cover here. So I'm glad that you're on, Rose. So with unknown infertility, there's a whole list of questions, and there's like a checklist for you to go through. Have you had testing done? Have you had your thyroid tested? There's a whole list of tests that could possibly be done, because if you can find out what's going on, it's going to be a lot easier to target it and to do something about it. So that would be my first question when it's unknown infertility and you've been trying for a while, is have you had testing done? And a lot of people will say yes, but then I'll ask about a couple, have you had tests for these? And they'll say no. So if you have had some testing done and you want to work with us a little bit more directly, contact us at Natural Fertility Shop, Rose, and we can find out what you've had tested and what you haven't, so that you can get that testing done and maybe get an answer. But if you still get no answer and you still have unexplained infertility, the next step is going to be cleansing, and then we're just going to focus on helping to support the endocrine system and focusing on helping to support hormonal balance, and going from there, focusing on diet and the hormonal balance through the endocrine system. So that would be the approach if all your tests come back and there's absolutely nothing going on. You have a 14-year-old daughter, been able to conceive and you have had testing done. And so I'd like to know what tests you've had done so we can kind of zone in on that, Rose. All right, repost your questions, guys. You have such great questions. So Rose, you can contact us at naturalfertilityshop.com and click on contact us, and then you can list out what you've done. When trying to conceive and trying all these helpful herbs, how do you know when to start and stop them? So that's a great question. So it depends on what you're doing. So Herbs in general are take about 3 months before you can begin to see a result when it comes to hormonal balancing. Herbs in other categories, like for stress or for other things, work a lot quicker. But when we're looking at helping to support the reproductive system, it takes some time because there's this really intricate hormonal orchestra that's happening within the body, and shifts, it takes time. So 3 months is what I generally say. So what will happen is, say you're using an herb that's going to help to lengthen your cycle or help to support a normal, healthy cycle. Great, Rose, do that. So what's going to happen is 1 month your cycle might be a little shorter, and the next month it might be a little longer. Then the third month you might have a little bit of spotting, but your cycle's the perfect length. So you might start seeing all these little shifts and all these little changes that happen to your cycle, so you know it's starting to work, but it won't be fully realized for a little period of time because of how much shifting that has to happen. So how you will know is you'll start to see different changes. So for instance, if you're trying to just a second, my husband needs mine. If you're trying to, balance your hormones, or you're not ovulating, you're going to start seeing signs and different things happening to your body that tells you that it's working. You'll start to realize things. You've been so worried during these first 2 cycles of Vitex. Jesse, why have you been worried? I missed the first part of that. And please repost your questions, guys. When you type in a question, just copy it so you can paste it again. Because I want to make sure I can get to all your questions. You have such good questions today. 42, suffering from PCOS. Can you get pregnant? Your period is not regular. So, no matter what someone's age is, I cannot tell you whether or not you'll be able to get pregnant, just so you know. But there's a couple of factors that are needed in place. Thank you so much. There's a couple of factors that are needed in order for you to get pregnant. 1, are you ovulating? 2, is your cycle long enough and consistent enough? 3, are those issues just due to PCOS, or could you possibly be in perimenopause? You can find out if you're in perimenopause by getting some blood testing done. Your period being shorter than longer and spotting. Yeah, exactly. That's from the Vitex, Jesse, from the shifting that's happening. And when you start taking Vitex as well, sometimes your estrogen receptor sites wake up and you kind of get even more exaggerated symptoms than before. But then everything settles down and your hormonal balance comes back with some time. It is a slow working herb, but it's amazing once you've given it enough time to work. It's amazing. So yes, it is possible at 42 PCOS to get pregnant, but it just depends on what's going on. So support egg health in the meantime and focus on PCOS and reducing insulin resistance, losing weight if that's what's needed. So there's a lot of different factors to that. But also, once you start getting, in your 40s, you may have to look into some alternatives. It's not always the case. We definitely have had a lot of women who have gotten pregnant naturally, but there is a factor to that because of the environment and because of all these different things that have been happening for a period of time. So your idea of how exactly you're going to get pregnant might need to expand. You can definitely have children, but it might not look exactly the exact way you set out to be a little while ago. Please repost that question. That was a great question, but I didn't catch the whole things. So get your thyroid levels checked. That thyroid is one of the levels to get checked, yes. Had fibroids removed 8 weeks ago. What can I do to help heal my uterus to prepare for pregnancy? Ooh, that's a great question. You guys have such good questions. So fibroids removed 8 weeks ago. What you can do to prepare? Well, there's 2 different things. So the first thing is you're going to want to make sure that you're eating a healthy diet. You're going to want to make sure that you're increasing circulation and that you're avoiding toxins and different things like that. But the other thing is just you got your fibroids removed, but you need to live in a lifestyle that is going to help prevent them from coming back. So just getting them removed isn't going to stop them from growing back, unfortunately. We find a lot of people will get the surgery and then, why are my fibroids coming back? So lifestyle changes for that, reducing the excess estrogen in your life. The ways to do that are to eat as organic as you can, eat as mostly plant-based as much as you can, or go totally plant-based, because that's going to get rid of a lot of the excess hormones from your diet. Increasing the fiber that you eat helps get rid of excess hormones from the diet. Also helping support the liver regularly through the use of herbs, drinking plenty of water. So that's what I would focus on, is keeping the fibroids at bay and keeping them away from growing back, and increasing circulation through massage and exercise. I hope that helps. I know I'm trying to, it's a big topic. I'm trying to answer in a really quick, helpful way for you. Can fibroids affect you getting pregnant? Your guide says it doesn't. Yes, I do believe fibroids can affect someone getting pregnant. It depends on their size. It depends on their size. You have an irregular period. Do you think if taking, oh, I didn't understand that question. I'm sorry. Could you repost that? I didn't quite understand what you're asking. Yeah, so fibroids can affect, some people have really large fibroids and multiple of them. It can definitely affect the chance of getting pregnant because implantation, and also that's a sign of hormonal imbalances for sure. So you're having such an excess of estrogen. The fibroids could be releasing additional as well. Are you ovulating? There might be some other factors because of the fibroids actually being there that are a sign that the body's out of balance. So it's best to get that taken care of if you can. Natural therapies are very helpful, but sometimes they get to a size that surgery is going to be the option. There's a place for it for sure. How do you handle the scar tissue? There's a couple different things. Do some more research on something called systemic enzymes. We found them to be pretty darn amazing. Also, massage is fantastic for that. They affected my friend. They can cause miscarriage. Surgery really exactly. So they can hinder proper implantation and cause issues during the pregnancy. Surgery is a path for a lot of people, but that does not prevent them from growing back. So you do have to still make those exact same lifestyle changes, but you feel so good from them. You get so many benefits from these lifestyle changes too. Vern is saying you have thyroid issues. Although under control still hasn't been successful, what do I recommend? So Vern, I'll have to know a lot more about what's going on with you. What you can do is if you want to contact us at naturalfertilityshop.com, we can ask you some specific questions to kind of get started because there's a lot of other questions and a lot of other things we need to know, like how long is your cycle? What is your period? Like stuff like that. So if you don't know exactly where to start, even a consultation is probably going to be a really good place for you, so we can get down to it and get you a personalized plan. Because once the thyroid issues are under control, you're kind of expecting to get pregnant right away, right? But that still doesn't happen. So there's some other factors we may want to explore. All right, repost those questions. I'm looking at you. Thank you guys so much for the hearts. I so appreciate. Here on Periscope, I'm getting hearts. Okay, so any last questions, guys? So I have one last one on my list. I have a month. Oh, here we go. Is there anything I can do to help diminish ovarian reserve? There's a couple different things to do. There's a great article. I think I'll have to do a complete video on this because I've gotten this question a lot. So I'm going to do a whole video for you on this very soon. Having a hard time increasing cervical mucus. Heather is asking about this. What have you tried so far, Heather? So maybe I can give you some other suggestions. What have you tried so far to help increase cervical mucus? Maka, Savior Girl says Maka. Spotting 4 days before period, no polyps or fibroids, progesterone levels normal, low estrogen. Spotting 4 days before period. So generally with, Savory's saying to use Maka. Okay, so spotting right before your period. So generally, spotting before the period, can be a couple of different things. It can be just what's normal for you if it's something that happens pretty regularly. Generally, it can be a shorter luteal phase. So what spotting is it's actually the lining of your uterus beginning to break down, and your period is beginning essentially. So a lot of times that can actually be a sign of low progesterone. So you're saying your progesterone's fine. When did you get it tested? Did you get it tested during a certain part of your cycle? Are you using any herbs for hormonal balance? So those are my first two questions to find out if the spotting is, and how long is your cycle? So day 21 is when you start spotting. So those are my questions. I would need more information to find out, okay, that's just your cycle, that's just normal, or is are your hormonal levels kind of dropping off? So another great question I got was, your cycle ranges from 26 to 30 days, and is the spotting normal? Is it regular for you? Someone's asking, I have a 1 month before IVF, what can I do? So this one's a tough one because we actually need a lot more time in order to make a pretty big impact before doing an IVF. So the thing that happens with IVF is once you start your medications, we can't do any herbs. But there's a lot of things you still can do. So you wouldn't want to do a fertility cleanse. You wouldn't want to do herbs because we need some time ahead of time. So if you're wanting to support egg health before your IVF, we need 3 months at least to do that. Dietary changes have to happen at that time. We need to flood the body with oxygen, antioxidants, all these nutrients, and so on. But if you only have 1 month, Definitely, of course, do diet. Of course, do diet. But do things for circulation. So massage is going to be great. Reducing your stress is going to be great. Castor oil packs, those types of things that are not herbal or hormonally based, or can affect your hormonal balance, are going to be very supportive and fantastic in preparing. So that would be more the direction I'd focus on when you only have a month before you're going to start your meds. When I use cleansing, when it's time I start intercourse and cleansing, what's next? For cervical mucus, you've tried 4,000 milligrams of fish oil, evening permissible arginine, and you drink a ton of water. And that still hasn't worked for you, Heather. That's generally the key, is going to be the evening permissible and arginine. So if that has not worked for you, something else to consider would be maca. Someone earlier was mentioning that. Might want to support the endocrine system that way. Yeah, those usually just do the trick within a couple of days. How do you know if an ovulated egg is mature? I have no idea. You would only be able to tell through ultrasound and being completely monitored, so there is actually no way of you knowing. Generally, is maca bad for fibroids? No, I would not think so at all. Herbs to help build a thicker uterine lining. So some herbs, so they're going to be herbs that are going to be very supportive for estrogen within the body. So we'd like herbs like red clover, royal jelly, but it's mostly going to be from diet, making sure that you're eating enough food and eating a nutrient-dense diet. Cindy, you can find maca at naturalfertilityshop.com. You can find the best maca, our maca, of course, at naturalfertilityshop.com. So maca is, so there's a couple different types of maca. There's raw maca and there's gelatinized maca. Go for the gelatinized. That's the main maca that we work with. It's easier to digest and it's more potent. You would start at about 1,000 milligrams, and depending on your body size, you could work up to 3,000 milligrams, but 1,000 milligrams is a great starting point. While using cleansing, you started, if you express best pain, is that normal? I have not actually heard of anyone experiencing that. It might have just been due to part of your cycle and kind of what part of your cycle you might have been in. But that's not something that we normally hear or experience. So you've had blood work done, your tubes checked, your thyroid checked, sonograms, and so on. All came back negative. Would the cleanse be your first step? Generally, so Rose, generally the cleanse is the first step for most people. For majority of people, is going to be the cleanse. And a lot of times that kind of nudges people the direction that they need to go. Did you get your FSH levels checked? Did you get all your hormone levels checked? Were you checked for any type of genetic issues? You were saying, I believe before, that you do have a child who's 14. Yep, you do have a child who's 14. What's your cycle like? The length of your cycle? Those types of things can be, we can kind of analyze. So if you want to contact us, we can find out the length of your cycle. But I need to know the actual numbers. So a lot of people will say, this came out fine, but it's like, how long is the cycle? How regular is your ovulation? How are you tracking ovulation? Do you know when you're ovulating? So with Unexplained Infertility, we have to go through the whole list, even though most of the questions, of course, are going to be yes, right? You can repost those questions. Sorry, I missed those. So it can be frustrating. So we need to look at, so normal every 28 days for 7 days. And then what day of your cycle do you ovulate, and how do you track your ovulation? How do you track your ovulation? All right, guys. So do you have any other questions? Go ahead and post them. How do you know if you're ovulating or not? So, Corny, I did a whole video on this, so if you want to watch a whole long explanation and to teach you the different ways of doing it, you can check that out on YouTube or naturalfertilityinfo.com. But there's a couple ways to know if you are ovulating. So it's really important to know, because a lot of people will say, so Rose is using OvuWatch, so she's on it day 11. I know, very textbook, right, Rose? That's got to be so frustrating. So a lot of people think that they ovulate because they feel like a twitching, they feel something, or their cervical mucus, or they kind of just feel that they're ovulating. When a lot of times you may be off. You may not know exactly for sure. So I definitely suggest that for a period of time, I would try to conceive, to use some type of tool, such as OPK test strips with fertility charting, with cervical mucus observation, those types of things, so that you can definitely pinpoint when you're ovulating. There was a study done that found that a majority of IVF clients who were going in for their first visit thought that they were pinpointing when they were ovulating, and they were actually not pinpointing the time. And for some of them, it was just a mismatch of time of the month that they were trying to get pregnant. So a couple ways is doing the OPK test. A free way is to do fertility charting. There's apps, there's tons of free apps. You just need a thermometer. Clear Blue Easy is something that you can buy I think it's about $100. That is like an OPK test strip, but it just is really simple to use and it will tell you. So that's one way to tell if you're ovulating or not. So to actually find out from your body, look at the signs, and then you'll know. And then you'll know if that's an area that you need to focus on. Yes, there you go. Sorry, I missed. There's a bunch of questions I totally missed. So if you want to repost those. So starting with something like that, I don't know if you've used a tool like that, but that would be a good place to start. Since you just had your fibroid removed and never pregnant, should you get on a cleanse? Yes, that would be something I would look into, I would suggest you do more research into the cleanse. Yeah. Because the thing is, you've had the fibroids removed, but no other situation in your life has changed yet. So your lifestyle hasn't changed, your diet hasn't changed, your liver hasn't been supported. So just because they were manually removed doesn't remove the entire situation that caused them. So taking a look at the current lifestyle and really seeing where you need to make those shifts and changes and where you can support your body and helping to metabolize excess hormones and things like that is where to start. So definitely look into the cleanse. What can you do for a cycle that has been longer than normal? Modest me, what is longer than normal? What's your normal? And then what's the length that's been happening and how long has that been happening? Your husband's getting so frustrated with you because you're meaning about ovulating every month is so upsetting. Beginning not to want, oh, honey, I know. And that's actually, I was going to say that when I was talking about OPK testing and ovulation testing, is how if it's something that's becoming really obsessive and stressful, that's when I say to just stop doing it, to just stop charting. It can be so frustrating. But Rose, I don't know if you've talked with our staff or our team yet, but it'd be really good for you to contact us. I really want you to, so that we can ask you all these redundant questions, but you never know. There might be one that we ask that hits the nail on the head. So please contact us so that we can, have a little bit more of a one-on-one conversation and ask you those questions, get those answers. And I really would suggest a consultation for you, Rose. Okay, so light and short 2-day periods, a sign of endometriosis. No, not necessarily. That's not just like your period's 2 days and light, you have endometriosis. No, that's a lot of different things. Can you take maca while cleansing? I think that's what that question was. Yes, maca can be used while you're cleansing. Simple. Thank you for the simple question. Yeah. And any herbs that you've taken before cleansing, you just continue during the cleanse. But a lot of herbs, we just wouldn't suggest you start at the same time as the cleanse. So 5 days going on 2 weeks. So 5 days. So you're saying your period is normally 5 days and your period is going on to 2 weeks long? Modest me, is that what you're saying? So when you say your cycle's long, are you talking about the whole thing or your period? Oh, okay. So 2 weeks is very long. Yes. Okay. How long is your whole cycle? Like from your period until your next period? I wish I brought some water down here. Again, parts, you guys have so many good questions. All right, so we're waiting to let her back. What do I recommend for PCOS? So Pookie, so there's a lot of different things. So about 28 days. Okay, so your period. So I'll get to your PCOS question in just 1 second, Pookie. So 28 days is a normal length cycle, and all of a sudden you've started having a very long period. Has this ever happened before? Have you had any blood testing? Have you talked to your OBGYN? What have they said to you? So I'm waiting to hear back on that. So Pookie, so for PCOS, so one of the main things that we are concerned about when it comes to PCOS is, one, we're not ovulating and we're getting polycystic syndrome because ovulation is not occurring, right? So we're getting cysts on the ovaries. So once last year. So the first thing, modest me, I would do since your period is so long is I would talk to your OBGYN. I would ask them to and find out what is causing that, but I wouldn't just, they're going to say, okay, so okay, fibroid. Because I was going to say they might just put you on birth control, and I wouldn't take that as an answer either. Okay, so your period is very long because of fibroid. All right, so instead of focusing on the long period, we need to focus on the fibroid and helping the body with the fibroid situation, depending on the size and what you can do for that. So if you go to the website, naturalfertilityinfo.com, you'll see a whole protocol for helping to support the body while it's experiencing fibroid, looking at all of your options. Sometimes, of course, that is going to be surgery depending on the size. If they're small, maybe you won't have to. But that's going to be more the focus than your long period. If you have a very heavy flow, there is a herbal blend called Slow Flow you can look into to help in the meantime, but it may not change until you look at that fibroid situation. So doing more research on that and finding out what your options are and how you can support your body. So I hope that was helpful. Okay, golf ball size. Okay, it's not too big. So definitely do some research on the natural therapies for helping the body to support you through that. Because everything that we're doing is supporting the body in its natural ability. When should you start having intercourse when cleansing? So once you complete your fertility cleanse, that whole month, we suggest to not try to get pregnant during that time. So back to the PCOS. So insulin resistance is one of the main focuses of PCOS and what we need to reverse and help the body to overcome. So when it comes to PCOS, that initial part, you're welcome. And I so hope that if you have questions, contact us. So that starts a whole cascade of hormonal issues. So insulin resistance needs to be one of the focuses. There's a couple of different ways to work with that. And the number one way, one of the main and only ways actually, is going to be through diet. So helping to make the body more insulin sensitive again. So there's two ways you can do that. One is you can go on a low carb, high protein diet. Very, very hard for people. The other way, which has been so exciting, I've been doing a lot of research into this lately, because I think it's something that's more sustainable for everybody that's going through this, is to eat a high carbohydrate, low fat diet. So that's eating a diet that's high in whole plant foods, though you can't just start eating a bunch of donuts and bread and things like that. And that has been shown to help to keep, to make the body more insulin sensitive, because it's actually the fat in the system that's keeping the blood sugar level high, because it's trapping the sugar in the blood. I'll go into that in more detail in future, as this is new research that I'm finding out that's so exciting, because it's so much more sustainable to eat that way for people than low carb. I mean, I'm sure we can put some hands up, we've all tried low carb, especially when you're going through something like PCOS and insulin resistance, and you need to start seeing a change quickly. With that type of shift, people have been seeing a change within weeks. So for those of you who keep on contacting, I'm eating great, but I'm not losing weight. I have PCOS. What should I be doing? So there's some shifts that can happen with diet that I've recently discovered. And this isn't new. It's just new to my research into what I'm doing. I've started a course with Cornell University. And what it's actually blowing my mind is that it's the fat that's in the blood that's blocking the sugar from being absorbed quickly into the cells. And that's what's causing these blood sugar spikes, and then the body's releasing more insulin, and it's causing this insulin resistance that's happening. So that's a good place to start. So with diet, learning more about that. I'll share some books with you and some doctors that are leading the way with this, so that you can look into what their protocol is and how you can start with that. But diet, eat more plants, eat more fiber. That's a good place to start. The next thing with PCOS is going to help support hormonal balance and supporting the liver. So once you have diet, then you can kind of take the next stage with using the herbs. You're missing your avocado and smoothies. Avocado, so when I'm talking about fats too, with all of this, it's going to be oils, it's going to be added fats into foods. You can eat avocados, you can eat nuts. Fats in their whole food form are fantastic for you. It's just all of the fat that we're cooking with that's added to processed foods, things like that. Any recommendations for after lap surgery for having lap in July again? You know, my biggest recommendation would be, when you're healing from something like that, would be to just really support the body through nutrition. I know you guys are probably so bored of hearing me talk about nutrition and diet, but so juicing, having fresh juice is one of the best things to help to heal from surgery. Getting the body flooded with those nutrients can be really helpful. Also, making sure you're eating a lot of anti-inflammatory foods like ginger and turmeric are fantastic for after surgery. And then, Heather, the lifestyle changes that help to support the body so that the endo does not grow back. Because again, like I was talking to some of these fibroid ladies, helping to support the body so it doesn't grow back, because getting it taken out is awesome. But then if there's still the situation in the environment, it can regrow, and we do not want that to happen. So